This is the weekly roundup on EAC News Channel. A very good evening to you. I'm Darshana Gauchan. 2 Japanese Indo-Pacific Self-Defense Force ships are scheduled to dock at the Sihanoukville Autonomous Port for 3 days between 15th to 17th March 2022 to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Japan's peacekeeping operations in Cambodia. While the ships are docked in Sihanoukville, a delegation of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces will also pay a courtesy visit to the head of the royal government of Cambodia, Prime Minister Hun Sen. The 2 ships to dock are the Uraga 463 and the Hirado 305. The Uraga 463 is 141 meters long, 22 meters wide, with a depth of 5.4 meters, a payload of 5,650 tons, and a crew of 126 members. The Hirado 305 is 67 meters long, 11 meters wide, has a depth of 2.7 meters, a payload of 690 tons, and a crew of 54. The 2 ships are jointly commanded by Noguchi Yasushi, who is the commander of the 1st Indo-Pacific Mine Action Division. The Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces, General Atsarat, has confirmed that the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces is ready to chair the 19th ASEAN Chiefs of Defences Forces meeting under the theme Unity for Peaceful Harmony from 16th to 18th March. EAC News reporter Dekanin has more details.
During the meeting to inspect the shortcomings of the Ministry of National Defense on Sunday afternoon, General Atsarat reaffirmed that the Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces will be responsible for 3 main ASEAN events this year: the ASEAN Chiefs of Defense Forces meeting, the ASEAN Military Intelligence meeting, and the ASEAN Military Operations meeting. He stated that the Ministry of National Defense has set up a subcommittee to chair the upcoming ASEAN Chiefs of Defense Forces meeting, led by himself, and members of other units under the Commander-in-Chief have been assigned responsibility for different tasks by the leadership. General Atsarat added that Cambodia hosting the 19th ASEAN Chiefs of Defense Forces meeting shows the national pride of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces and the history of the nation under the wise leadership of Prime Minister Hun Sen, especially during the time of COVID-19 pandemic, as it shows the international community that Cambodia has sufficient resources and capabilities to control the spread of COVID-19. He further stated that this historic event provides an opportunity for the Ministry of National and the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces as a whole to demonstrate their prestige and ability to pave the way for maintaining unity, solidarity, and resilience in ASEAN. Later this year, the 16th ASEAN Defense Ministers meeting has been tentatively planned to take place on the 21st of June 2022. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Siem Reap Provincial Governor Thia Seha has said that 38 road infrastructure projects in Siem Reap Province, which were completed at the end of December 2021, are scheduled to be inaugurated on 4th April 2022 before the Khmer New Year celebrations begin. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
Speaking at the inauguration ceremony of the new Deputy Governor of Siem Reap on the morning of Friday the 11th of March, the Governor of Siem Reap, Thia Seha, said that the construction of 38 road projects in the province are now 100% complete and equipped with public street lighting and other features. These roads have been officially inaugurated on the 4th of April 2022 by Prime Minister Hun Sen and his wife First Lady Bundalani Hun Sen. The Governor said, despite facing the severe effects of COVID-19 pandemic, the provincial administration, with the support of the royal government, has paid attention to improving the beauty of Siem Reap. The 38 road infrastructure project in Siem Reap saw an improvement in the construction of roads at a total length of 106.42 kilometres, complete with a total national budget of more than $150 million, of which $9 million was spent on the construction of 248.72 kilometres of new rainwater and sewage systems between 30th November 2020 and the end of 2021. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
The Prime Minister of the Lao People's Democratic Republic has sent a message of thanks to Prime Minister Hun Sen, expressing his gratitude to Cambodia for always helping Laos in difficult times. The letter comes after Cambodia donated 10 vaccine trucks to Laos on Saturday. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
The Prime Minister of Laos, Pakham Vipavan, said that in his letter thanks addressed to the Prime Minister Hun Sen. Once again, I would like to sincerely thank Prime Minister Hun Sen for his warm welcome during my official visit in the Kingdom of Cambodia at the end of November 2021, and for providing assistance to the Lao People's Democratic Republic to prevent the spread of COVID-19, including $13 million, 500,000 doses of vaccines and 13 vaccine trucks. The Laotian Prime Minister further expressed his sincere gratitude and appreciations on behalf of the party, the government and the people of Laos. To the Prime Minister Hun Sen, the Cambodian People Party, the Royal Government of Cambodia and the people of Cambodia for providing assistance during the time when we both Laos, Cambodia faced serious outbreaks of COVID-19, and particularly supporting Laos in achieving its national vaccine goals. The donations made by the Royal Government of Cambodia to the Government of People in Laos show the long-standing friendship, solidarity and cooperation that exists between the two countries, making them comprehensive and stable strategic partners to one another. In addition to Laos, Cambodia has so far provided financial assistance, face masks and medical equipment to many countries in the region, including Myanmar, Vietnam and Timor. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
NATO still helps Russia's neighbors to send mercenaries into Ukraine, regardless of the fact that this is an act of violation of United Nations International Convention, said former Director General of the United Nations Office at Geneva, Sergei Ordzhonikidze, on Friday.
Ordzhonikidze, who is also a former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, has said that despite NATO will not have a war with Russia, it still took hostile actions against Russia in other forms, which is violation of the United Nations International Convention. NATO knows very well that a war with Russia would herald World War III, in that if a thermonuclear war were to happen, NATO could disappear and Russia would also suffer huge losses. Therefore, NATO will not go to war with Russia. Unfortunately, the situation is worsening and NATO are sending mercenaries to Ukraine, which is in violation of the UN International Convention against the recruitment of mercenaries. The convention requires countries to commit not recruiting, financing, and using mercenaries and not sending mercenaries to war zones. But now, this is happening. With the help of NATO countries, Russia's neighbors, such as Poland, are sending mercenaries to Ukraine. In response, the Russian Defense Ministry has issued a statement saying that mercenaries do not meet the criteria for combatants under the Geneva Convention. I believe that NATO is acting as it pleases, supplying weapons and sending mercenaries to war zones without control, said Ordzhonikidze. On Russian Defense Ministry's accusation of U.S. biological labs in Ukraine, Ordzhonikidze has mentioned that establishing military biological laboratories is a practice of U.S. aggression in a plan to destroy its potential adversaries. Ordzhonikidze has also said there are 30 such laboratories in Ukraine, and similar laboratories also exist in Central Asia. The United States has used words top secret to disguise its practice, but it has violated relevant conventions on biological weapons, Ordzhonikidze has added.
Каждый раз, когда мы интересовались.
The Russia-Ukraine conflict continued on Sunday while a member of the Russian delegation said the negotiations with Ukraine have made considerable progress.
The two sides have held 3 rounds of talks so far and agreed on establishing humanitarian corridors. This is the latest developments of the situation. A Russian delegate to Ukraine has said there has been considerable progress since the Russian-Ukraine talks began. The report cited Russian negotiator Leonid Slutsky, who said talks with Ukraine may soon produce draft agreements. It may be possible to reach a joint position between the two delegations soon, said the official. Ukrainian negotiator and presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolyak on Sunday has also said he thought progress could be made at talks with Russia in the coming days, as the Russian side has become more constructive. Russian President Vladimir Putin had a telephone conversation with French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on Saturday and have urged them to influence the Kyiv authorities to stop criminal acts of Ukrainian nationalist battalions, according to the Kremlin. Macron and Scholz have urged an immediate ceasefire and a diplomatic solution to the conflict in Ukraine, the German government said in a statement, noting the 75-minute talk as part of the ongoing international efforts to end the conflict. Zelensky has said on Saturday that NATO members are lacking courage and consensus on whether to accept Ukraine. The current conflict in Ukraine has not been easy for Russian financial institutions. Still, the country's capital reserves have made it possible for banks under severe restrictions to function. Russia has established an online trading platform, Import Substitution Exchange, to enable direct interactions between manufacturing companies in Russia and customers. There are enough component manufacturers in Russia who are willing to provide products to the domestic market to repair the supply chain that has been suspended by sanctions. The Russian Central Bank on Saturday said it will not resume trading on the Moscow exchanges from March 14 to the 18th, which will extend the market closures since February 28 to a third week. Nearly 125,000 people have been evacuated via humanitarian corridors from conflict zones in Ukraine, Zelensky has said in a video address on Sunday. The Russian military said Saturday that the humanitarian situation is deteriorating quickly in Ukraine and has become catastrophic in several cities. Mikhail Mizintsev, head of the Russian National Defense Control Center, accused Ukrainian nationalists of laying mines in residential areas and destroying key infrastructure.
Two Japanese maritime self-defense force ships carrying nearly 200 crew members docked in Cambodian waters on the morning of Tuesday, 15 March, to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Japan's peacekeeping operations in Cambodia. EAC News reporter Deka Nin has the details.
The docking of the ships was welcomed by the Minister of National Defense, Deputy Prime Minister Thiet Banh. During the welcoming meeting and talk with the arrived delegation of the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Forces at the Sihanoukville Autonomous Port, the Deputy Prime Minister remarked that the visit of the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force is of great value to Cambodia and promotes cooperation in all fields between Cambodia and Japan. He said that he would like to commend and express appreciation to the Cambodian Navy, which has cooperated with the ministry, local administrative institutions, and relevant authorities to coordinate the arrival of the two Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force ships, which safely docked at the Sihanoukville Autonomous Port. He added that the Cambodian people will always remember and appreciate the participation of the Japanese Self-Defense Force peacekeepers who came to Cambodia for the first time 30 years ago, especially the sacrifice of the two officials during the UNTAC mission. Atsuhi Naktata, the district election officer who sacrificed his life on the 8th of April 1993 in Kampong Thom province, and Haruyuki Takata, a police officer who sacrificed his life on the 4th of May 1993 in Banti Minjay province. The visit of the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Forces at Sihanoukville Autonomous Port brings expectations that the Japanese side will push for a more active Cambodia-Japan bilateral cooperation plan. This includes the exchange of visits by young officers and the senior officers, training for capacity building for the Cambodian Army on humanitarian and disaster relief, which offers active officers training in engineering and health. Since 2008, the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Forces have docked at the Sihanoukville Autonomous Port 9 times, with a total of 24 ships arriving in Cambodia. The visits have included joint training to strengthen cooperation and enhance the capacity of both Cambodian and Japanese navies in the sectors of health, humanitarian relief, disaster response, and counter-terrorism. A delegation of the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Forces arrived in Cambodia on Tuesday morning, with two ships docking at the Sihanoukville Autonomous Port to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Japan's peacekeeping operations in Cambodia. The two ships that arrived are the Uraga 463 and the Hirado 305, bringing a crew of nearly 200 members, and will be docked in Sihanoukville from the 15th to the 17th of March. Deka Nin, EAC News.
On Monday evening, the Phnom Penh Municipal Court released the 8 union leaders representing the demonstrations by former Naga World employees on bail. The 8 individuals had applied for temporary bail to the Ministry of Labor and pledged to end the protests and also return to negotiations to resolve the ongoing labor dispute. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
The Minister of Labour and Vocational Training, It Samhang, sent a delegation to visit the temporary release from former Naga World employees to discuss a time for negotiations to take place in order to end the ongoing labour dispute. The 8 individuals released on bail includes Chim Sithor, who is the former union leader of Naga World casino workers. All 8 of them had written separate letters addressed to the Minister of Labour requesting to be temporarily released from jail in order to negotiate a solution while promising not to hold any more protests or strikes. In a letter signed on the 12th of March 2022, all 8 of the individuals called on striking workers to return to work and those who have been laid off to stay at home and keep quiet so they can engage in a further negotiations with the company Naga World Limited and the Ministry of Labour. The letter states requests that the competent ministries, especially the Ministry of Labour, to intervene legally so we can be temporarily released from jail as Naga World workers' representatives in order to resolve the ongoing dispute. We promise not to rally or lead any protests and affect the public order and national security. In early January 2022, the Phnom Penh Municipal Court investigated and detained 8 protesting former Naga World workers for inciting serious social unrest under the Articles 494 and 495 of the Penal Code. The Naga World protesters began 18th of December 2021, stemming from Naga World's decision to lay off 1,329 employees in April of 2021. From that number, 373 employees refused to accept the compensation offered by the company and went on strike, despite such demonstrations being deemed illegal by Cambodian courts. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
The Minister of Tourism, Thong Khon, stated on Monday that Cambodia will begin using a state-of-the-art garbage collection boat equipped with new German technology to clean up the Mekong, Tonle Sap, and Tonle Basak. This boat has the capacity to collect 20 tons of garbage per day. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more details.
Minister Thong Khon held a meeting with the chairman and co-founder of Everwave GmbH, Clemens Namakfagal, and executive director of River Ocean Cleanup, Noor Savan, to discuss work regarding the cleanup campaigns on the Mekong Tonle Sap and Tonle Basak. The Mekong cleanup campaign will utilise new Germany technology, the garbage collection, both named Mogina by Lackerman, which has the ability to quickly collect location data and landfills via drones and capacity of collect up to 20 tonnes of garbage in the water per day. The co-founder of Everwave started the campaign. We will use CollectX boats to pick up the trash from the water and riverbank from March to June 2022. The collected waste will then be distributed into landfill in Phnom Penh, jointly organised with Everwave and River Ocean Cleanup, and the non-recyclable waste will be sent to Chipmunk EcoCycle to be converted to energy in the cement factory. He added that the campaign main activities, including cleaning the river, using the CollectX garbage boat to collect plastic and overflowing debris from the river, and cleaning up to 200 metres of the riverbank to prevent garbage from falling into the river. The campaign also includes recycling collective garbage by Chipmunk EcoCycle and educating students and people living along the river about infrastructure development and the enforcement of waste laws in Cambodia. Minister Thong Khon extended a warm welcome to Everywhere and the River Ocean Cleanup and expressed his appreciation to them for organising for this river cleanup campaign, one of the first river cleaning missions in its kind in Cambodia, contributing greatly to the protection of Cambodian waters as well as the recent launched nationwide Clean City campaign. The minister also called on the working group to continue its long-term mission of cleaning up the rivers in Cambodia, not only in Phnom Penh area, but to continue this work also in provinces, especially where tourism is concentrated like Chong Khanes, Siem Reap and other riverside provinces. He said that promoting clean and green practices along the rivers and the seas will help attract even more national and international tourists to take a boat or travel activities on the rivers of the seas. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
The Minister of Health, Mom Bun Heng, has requested all capital provincial governors to organize a campaign to raise awareness on COVID-19, to act as a regular reminder to join the continued fight against the spread of the coronavirus. EAC News reported that Ganin has further details.
In a letter dated Monday, 14th March 2022, the Minister of Health, Mom Bun Heng, stated his observation that after Cambodia reopened the country, some have begun to neglect implementing proper and thorough health measures, which is a good opportunity for COVID-19 to actively circulate in the community and cause another surge. He added that to date, the new COVID-19 variant has continued to spread in the community, with some cases of serious illness, hospitalization, and death reported among the most vulnerable and unvaccinated. He said the presence of the new COVID-19 variant in the world indicates that the pandemic is still unfinished and remains a public health risk for all countries, although some countries have relaxed their health measures. The minister added that in such a situation, it is necessary to increase public awareness of the need to protect oneself from the disease. He urged officials at the capital province level to organize regular educational activities and prepare educational materials such as banners and posters to be disseminated in key locations across the country. He also encouraged the dissemination of campaign messages on social media and provincial media, as well as projected over loudspeakers in key locations. The main goal, he stressed, is to educate and disseminate crucial information on COVID-19 using the messaging created by the APEC working group, encouraging people to continue implementing the 3 do's and 3 don'ts health measures, especially in high-risk places such as markets, restaurants, factories, schools, and other crowded areas, and further encouraging everyone to get vaccinated against COVID-19 as soon as possible. Nekanin, EAC News.
China's foreign ministry has said on Monday, March 14th, assertions from U.S. officials that Russia has asked Beijing for military equipment for its campaign in Ukraine was disinformation from the United States.
China slams U.S. claims that Russia asked it for military aid as disinformation. The comments came during a regular Chinese foreign ministry briefing in Beijing. Russia has asked China for military equipment since its February 24 invasion of Ukraine. The Financial Times and Washington Post has reported on Sunday, March 13, citing U.S. officials. The Washington Post has said the unidentified U.S. officials did not state the kind of weaponry that had been requested or how China had responded. Russia, which calls its action in Ukraine a special operation, and China have tightened cooperation as they have come under strong Western pressure over human rights and a raft of other issues. Beijing has not condemned Russia's attack and does not call it an invasion. It has also urged a negotiated solution to the conflict.
Ukraine is ready to negotiate to end the war started by Russia more than 2 weeks ago, but would not surrender or accept an ultimatum the country's foreign affairs minister Dmytro Kuleba has announced on Saturday, March 12th.
To fight Putin's
Speaking at a virtual event organized by the non-partisan non-profit organization Renew Democracy Initiative, Ukraine Foreign Minister Kuleba has said civilian lives would be saved if Ukraine had fighter jets and more attack planes to destroy large military columns. He has added that he believed that war would likely end if Russian President Vladimir Putin were removed from power.
Of course, this doesn't exclude the track of diplomacy and the need to talk and to find solutions. But as President Zelensky said on a number of occasions, we are ready to negotiate, but we are not going to accept any ultimatums and surrender. If we had more planes, we would have been able to save many more human lives, mainly civilian lives, because the main striking force of Russia is in the air, and they indiscriminately choose to attack civilian infrastructure and kill our civilians. I believe that the removal of President Putin will be enough to stop the war, but the restoration of peace and security in the Euro-Atlantic space will also require not only the removal of Putin, but the deputinization of Russia. Putin is not just a person, it's a system. And Russia must be deputinized.
Kuleba's comments came as fighting raged near Kiev and heavy shelling in other areas threatened new attempts to evacuate trapped civilians. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz spoke with Putin by phone, urging an immediate ceasefire. However, a French presidency official has said, "We did not detect a willingness on Putin's part to end the war."
On the evening of Wednesday, March 16th, Prime Minister Hun Sen met with the World Bank Vice President Manuela V. Ferro to discuss some important issues and projects that the World Bank is assisting in Cambodia. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has more details.
Prime Minister Hun Sen of Cambodia welcomed the presence of World Bank Vice President for Asia and the Pacific, Manuela V. Ferro, on her visit to Cambodia. He informed the World Bank representative that the World Bank can help Cambodia by strengthening its partnership. In a meeting with Manuela V. Ferro at the Office of the Council of Ministers on the afternoon of March 16, 2022, the Prime Minister informed her about Cambodia's COVID-19 vaccination strategy, which not only promotes public health care, but also helps the national economy. The Prime Minister informed her that the World Bank can help the Cambodian economy by promoting partnerships and projects in Cambodia. The Prime Minister's assistant, Insopolite, told reporters. The Prime Minister thanked the World Bank for its good cooperation as well as good partnership. What the World Bank can continue to do is to strengthen the partnership and promote all possible projects to contribute to the Cambodian economy. Manuela V. Ferro expressed her appreciation for Cambodia's anti-COVID-19 campaign. She also expressed the World Bank's commitment to working with the Cambodian government to push Cambodia to become a high middle-income country by 2030.
Prime Minister Hun Sen welcomed the commander of the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Forces 1st Indo-Pacific Mine Action Division, Noguchi Yasushi, and the rest of the crew aboard the 2 JM-SDF ships that docked at the Sihanoukville Autonomous Port on Tuesday to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Japan's peacekeeping operations in Cambodia. During the welcoming meeting, the Prime Minister recalled Japan's first peacekeeping mission in 1991 and said that Japan has not only sought peace for Cambodia, but also contributed to the country's development. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
The Prime Minister's personal assistant, Ang Sopolet, told reporters after a meeting that the Prime Minister has observed that Japan's role in finding world peace is growing, and the peacekeeping operations conducted in Cambodia so far have not only to help find peace, but also help the development of Cambodia. He added the Prime Minister has expressed that he is very proud of Japan's peacekeeping operations and encourages the country to increase cooperation with Cambodia to further promote peace in the region. During the meeting, Commander Noguchi Yasushi of Japan Marine Self-Defense Forces 1st Indo-Pacific Mine Action Division also thanked Prime Minister Hun Sen for the good cooperation with Japan, which recently demonstrated by the official state visit of the commander of the Royal Government Army, Hun Manet, to Japan. The Japanese commander vowed the Prime Minister, Hun Sen, that he would do his best to maintain security in the region. After the welcoming meeting concluded, the Prime Minister also had a meal with the arrived Japan Maritime Self-Defense Forces crew at the Soccer Hotel in Sihanoukville. The 2 Japanese Maritime Self-Defense ships docked in Sihanoukville Autonomous Port are Yugara 463 and Hidero 305, holding a crew of 180 of both joint commanded by the Commander Noguchi Yasushi. The ships will be docked at Sihanoukville from the 15th to the 17th of March. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
The royal government of Cambodia issued an official statement on Tuesday regarding the ongoing Naga World Labor dispute, saying that the Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training will continue to mediate and seek a resolution to the dispute, after protest leaders have expressed a soft position regarding negotiations. EAC News reporter Straipor Kong has the story.
While speaking at a working meeting with a special reporter on human rights in Cambodia, Vitat Montabon on Tuesday, 15 March, Deputy Prime Minister Saw King said that the number of prison detainees in Cambodia is more than 30,000, of which more than 50% are involved in drug cases. He added that while the ministry is working to build more infrastructure to accommodate this number of prison inmates safely, in the meanwhile, the ministry is considering exempting those with minor offenses from detention while pending court proceedings. During the meeting, the Deputy Prime Minister also mentioned progress made toward the 2022 election. He emphasized that this election is the 5th mandate election in accordance with the Constitution and showed the will of the royal government to implement reform to transfer power and resources from the national level to the sub-national level. He further commented on the matter of refugee in Cambodia and stated that, as a signatory to the Cambodian Refugee Permit, Cambodia firmly upholds its obligation to the mountainous indigenous people of Vietnam crossing into Cambodia, and strive to address the issue of third country asylum seeker responsibly. He added that for those refugees who wish to return to Vietnam, the ministry has partnered with the UNHCR to facilitate this work. In response, Special Reporter Vitat Montabon thanked Deputy Prime Minister So Keng for the constructive and mutually beneficial discussion. The Deputy Prime Minister also expressed his gratitude and stated that he would always be ready to meet with the Special Reporter at any opportunity needed. Sray Pokong, EAC News.
The royal government of Cambodia issued an official statement on Tuesday regarding the ongoing Naga World labor dispute, saying that the Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training will continue to mediate and seek a resolution to the dispute, after protest leaders have expressed a soft position regarding negotiations. EAC News reporter Strai Porkong has the story.
According to the statement issued by the royal government of Cambodia on the evening of Tuesday, 15 March, the Ministry of Labor will continue to engage in resolving the ongoing labor dispute between Naga World Limited and its employees, while seeking for a peaceful resolution. The statement adds that the ministry has seen positive signs after the 8 protest leaders who were released on bail on Monday expressed a soft stance, wanting to negotiate an end to the dispute. The statement reads, on 12 March 2022, each of the former employees sent a letter to the Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training seeking intervention to be released on bail and representative of employees in resolving the labor dispute with Naga World. Through the above-mentioned intervention letters, the ministry sent a letter to the Ministry of Justice, and in return, the Ministry of Justice sent another intervention letter forwarding into the Phnom Penh Municipal Court. Subsequently, the Phnom Penh Municipal Court reviewed the legal process and ruled for the release on bail of the 8 former employees at 1900 hours on 14 March 2022. In 2021, Naga World made the decision to reduce its staff by about 25% due to the severe impact of COVID-19 on tourism, and laid off 1,329 employees. About 42% of Naga World workers are still union members, of which 373 strongly opposed the layoff that demanded that the company reinstate them and other former employees back to their jobs. From 18 to 27 December 2021, the Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training invited the protesting parties 7 times for negotiations, during which the 373 disgruntled workers continued to demand the company reinstate their job and meet their additional demands. Since then, as of 15 March 2022, 153 out of the 373 former employees have agreed to accept severance pay from the company, now leaving 220 former employees who are still continue to fight for their needs to be met. Sray Pokong, EAC News.
The existence of more than 25 U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine is an undeniable fact, and the U.S. authorities should take immediate action to secure these facilities to prevent disaster, Tulsi Gabbard, a former member of the U.S. House of Representatives, has claimed on Monday.
Tulsi Gabbard, who stood as a Democratic candidate for the 2020 presidential election, listed 6 points of evidence which she has said proved the existence of such biolabs in Ukraine on her Twitter account on Monday. Firstly, she has said that Victoria Nuland, Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, has acknowledged the existence of such labs containing dangerous pathogens in her testimony to the U.S. Senate on March 8. Secondly, Gabbard has posted that the U.S. Defense Ministry acknowledged in a document released on Friday that the country has invested over $200 million in Ukraine since 2005, supporting 46 Ukrainian laboratories and other relevant health facilities. Third, she has referenced a report by Columbia Broadcasting System correspondent David Martin, who has said that a Pentagon official told him the military are concerned about the existence of such laboratories in Ukraine. The United States might be blamed for its support if Russia were to acquire the pathogens and turn them into biological weapons, the official allegedly revealed. Fourth, Gabbard has noted when refuting Russian accusations in April 2020, the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine acknowledged that there are biological labs funded by the U.S. in Ukraine, working with pathogens for vaccine and other peaceful purposes. Six, Gabbard has said the Department of Defense acknowledged that 2 biolabs upgraded by the Biological Threat Reduction Program in 2014, a DoD scheme, had fallen into Russian hands, with Ukraine continuing to be denied access to these facilities. Gabbard's comments has created an internet storm with many tweet replies claiming that the U.S. government is looking to cover up the issue. One suggested that the U.S. along with NATO are using the Ukrainian people as cannon fodder, similar to what they did in Syria. Another Twitter user even raised parallels with the 2003 U.S.-led invasion of Iraq, posting a photo of former U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell laying out evidence of Iraqi weapons of mass destruction which turned out not to exist.
And now for a look at news-making international headlines this Monday, 14th March.
A bus carrying around 50 Ukrainians went off the road in Italy and overturned, leaving one dead and several injured, firefighters said on Sunday, March 13. A woman fleeing Ukraine war dies in bus crash in Italy after being trapped under the bus, and her two children, aged 5 and 10, were among 22 refugees on bus that overturned on motorway. The accident has occurred on the A14 highway between Cesena and Rimini on the northeastern coast. According to firefighters, the bus ran off the road and overturned without involving other vehicles. As of Saturday, almost 35,000 Ukrainian refugees had arrived in Italy, most of them women and children.
Firefighters have rescued residents from a fire broke out in a building in Chernihiv, around 150 kilometres northwest of Kyiv, as heavy Russian shelling hits. A footage shows the crews battling the blaze, and residents were taken out of the building down an external emergency ladder, and one of them carried on a stretcher. In the eastern Ukraine, Russian troops are trying to surround Ukrainian forces as they advance from the port of Mariupol in the south of the second city, Kyiv, in the north, the UK Defence Ministry has said on Sunday. The British intelligence has also said Russian forces advancing from Crimea, which Russia annexed from Ukraine in 2014, were trying to circumvent Mykolaiv as they look to drive west towards Odessa. Air raid sirens again woke residents in Kyiv on Sunday morning, hours after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned Russian forces they face a fight to the death if they try to occupy the capital.
Italian finance police have seized a super yacht from Russian billionaire Andrei Igorovich Melnichenko. The Prime Minister office have confirmed on Saturday, March 12, a few days after the businessman was placed on a European Union sanctions list following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The 470-foot sailing yacht A, which has a price tag of 430 million euros, around $528 million US, has been sequestered at the northern port of Trieste, the government has said. Designed by Philipp Stark and built by Nobis Krug in Germany, the vessel is the world's biggest sailing yacht, the government has added. Melnichenko owns major fertilizer producer Eurochem Group and coal company SUEK. Last week, Italian police have seized villas and yachts worth 143 million euros from 5 high-profile Russians who have been placed on the sanctions list. The police operations were part of a coordinated drive by Western states to penalize wealthy Russians linked to the President Vladimir Putin.
And now for a look at news-making international headlines this Tuesday, 15th March.
A small private plane crashes and catches fire on Okinawa's Lijima Island on Saturday, March 12, leaving 2 persons dead. A non-profit organization that owns the air rescue plane have said the 2 victims are pilots aged 74 and 61. There were no patients on the aircraft at the time of the incident. Transport Ministry officials have said the men were undergoing training for takeoff and landing. The plane collided into a fence when landing on a runway.
Thai police were about to serve an arrest warrant to Jamrat Ratchachan, 45, when the gunfight has ensued as Ratchachan was resisted authorities in Pantalang province, South Thailand on Friday. Police Major Asan Mesang has died at the scene after being shot with an unknown type of firearm in the head. One of the Sultans, Wachana Ratchaswan, 38, was also killed. 2 other officers were injured. Lieutenant Colonel Chachai Sano, who had severe gunshot wounds in the right forearm, while Lieutenant Colonel Napada Napatapong had suffered a minor injury in the right elbow area as well as wound of broken glass. Officers have tracked down the gang and found their car have parked on the foothill of Khao Bahata Wildlife Sanctuary. Cotton wool soaked with blood was found burnt outside the car, while blood traces were also found in the vehicle. Police have also been sent to hospitals and paramedics in the area to watch out for the assailants. Locals have also been offered rewards if they come across the gangsters and contact the police. One of the escapees, a hired gunman, Jamrat Ratchachan, had been accused in murder cases and attempted murder cases in both Patanalang and Songlakawa province, wanted by the police with a bounty of 100,000 baht, around $3,000. Police Lieutenant General Nachajay had added to police had gotten in touch with other two escapees, Jay Swanamarano, 22, and Atapo Masan, 21, parents to collect DNA. He has said, "We have collected DNA samples from the gangsters' parents so we can compare them with the traces we found in the car." Atapo's mother, One Pen Mason, said, "My son has left the house since March 7th, saying he wanted to work lumbering with a friend in another village. Last night I heard from relatives that my son had gone with a group of friends and was chased by police. There was a shooting fight and he was injured."
8 people were killed while 30 others were injured in a bus crash after the driver allegedly fell asleep while doped up on methamphetamine. The tour bus operated by Thailand's state-run transport company smashed into a concrete barrier before hitting a bridge pillar in Saraburi province on Saturday afternoon, March 12. Driver Narin Sat Hongsa, 30, was taking passengers to Bangkok from Royat province when he is believed to have fallen asleep on the wheel, according to the police report. Narin Sat has initially denied falling asleep and said that one of the tires might have bursted, but test results allegedly showed that he was high on methamphetamine during the crash. Police Colonel Chetchai Chetsiri has said the driver later confessed to us that he was high on methamphetamine while driving. We have filed 2 charges against Narin Sat for being intoxicated while driving and for causing property damage and death to others. At the scene, the cement block barrier was completely smashed, while the vehicle's interior, the front right wheel, and the bar area on the side of the bus was also damaged. Officers took Narin Sat into custody for a thorough investigation, while the injured passengers were taken to Saraburi Hospital, Sao Hype Hospital, and Kang Khoi Hospital for treatment. The injured passengers and the relatives of those killed in the crash will now be compensated by the Transport Department's insurance company, while investigations are ongoing, officials have said.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia.
While speaking at the inauguration ceremony of the SOS Children's Village in Pravang Province on Thursday morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen said that gas prices are rising all over the world and not just in Cambodia. He stated that this problem was caused by the war in Ukraine and that the United States has also stopped importing gasoline from Russia, which is exacerbating the situation. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has further details.
The Prime Minister called on people to reduce travel or to commute together with others to reduce the cost of gas. He said that gas prices going up is not something which he can do much about, so people should not curse him for it. Additionally, he remarked on how dispute the rising costs of gas. There is still a lot of traffic on the streets, but he understands that this is something that cannot be changed since people have to travel to various reasons.
ហើយសាំងឡើងថ្លៃសូមកុំជេរហ៊ុនសែនអីតែរឿងហ្នឹងវាជារឿងសភាពការអន្តរជាតិដែលបានកើតឡើងសង្គ្រាមរវាងរុស្ស៊ីនិងអ៊ុយក្រែនវាបានបង្កើតជាបញ្ហាសម្រាប់សេដ្ឋកិច្ចសកលហើយប៉ុន្តែដំណោះស្រាយអាចមានយើងកាត់បន្ថយការធ្វើដំណើរខ្លះឧទាហរណ៍ថាការធ្វើដំណើរត្រូវតឡានទៅការឡានមួយយើងធ្លាប់ទៅឡាន2យើងធ្វើដំណើរតាមឡានមួយទៅណាវាក៏ធូរស្រាលតិចដែរប៉ុន្តែលូថាសាំងឡើងថ្លៃតែដើរក៏ចេះដើរស្ទះឡានឲ្យពេញទៅផ្លូវប៉ុន្តែមកអានោះជាតម្រូវការខ្ញុំអត់ទៅរារាំងបានទេ
Between the 16th and the 31st of March, the cost of fuel in Cambodia has reached 5,300 riel, or $1.3 per litre for both regular gasoline and diesel, seeing a 500 riel and 800 riel increase respectively. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen explained that the postponement of the ASEAN-US Special Summit was not due to the ASEAN chair, which some analysts have commented, but due to the busy schedules of ASEAN and US leaders. He made this statement while speaking at the inauguration ceremony of the SOS Children's Village in Pravang Province on Thursday, and also said that only the ASEAN chair has the right to comment on this matter. EAC News reporter Deka Nin has more.
Prime Minister Hun Sen stated that some analysts continue to make comments about matters related to ASEAN while lacking the sufficient knowledge. So he urges some analysts to go back and relearn ASEAN affairs, as the postponement of this meeting is not up to ASEAN chair. He explained that Indonesia is the facilitator between ASEAN and the United States, so the role of coordinating the times for the ASEAN-US Special Summit falls on Indonesia and not on the ASEAN chair.
ប្រទេសដែលធ្វើការសម្របសម្រួលរវាងអាស៊ាននិងអាមេរិកគឺប្រទេសឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីចឹងតួនាទីសម្របសម្រួលពេលវេលារវាងអាមេរិកជាមួយនឹងឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីគឺជាតួនាទីរបស់ឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីអាស៊ានអាមេរិកគឺតួនាទីរបស់ឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីអាមេរិកប្រកាសថ្ងៃ28ថ្ងៃ29គឺនៅពេលដែលឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីអត់តាន់បានធ្វើការសម្របសម្រួលជាមួយសមាជិកអាស៊ានទេដល់ទៅពេលឥណ្ឌូនេស៊ីចាប់ធ្វើការសម្របសម្រួលជាមួយប្រទេសអាស៊ានប្រទេស4ដែលមិនអាចទៅចូលរួមប្រជុំថ្ងៃទី28 29បានប៉ុន្តែក៏មានប្រទេសដែលអាចទៅចូលរួមគេស្នើសុំថាសូមឲ្យប្រជុំថ្ងៃ26និងថ្ងៃ27ខែមីនាជំនួសវិញប៉ុន្តែខាងភាគីអាមេរិកបានផ្ដល់នៅចម្លើយមកវិញថាថ្ងៃ26ថ្ងៃ27នេះมันអាចប្រជុំបានទេចឹងទេជំរឿនដែលល្អភាគីទាំងពីរស្នើលើកពេលវេលាសិនដើម្បីធ្វើការសម្របសម្រួលតាមក្រោយ
On the 10th of March, Foreign Ministry spokesman Chom Sundari told reporters that the ASEAN-US Special Summit had been postponed from the end of March to a later date, without a new date yet specified. He said that the delay was due to some ASEAN leaders not able to make it to the summit on the previously scheduled date. Dekanin, EAC News.
Following the inauguration ceremony of the SOS Children's Village in Praveng Province on Thursday morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen continued to meet with the new president of SOS Children's Villages, Dereji Wardofa, at the Peace Palace in Phnom Penh, where they discussed the protection of children in Cambodia. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more details.
Prime Minister Hun Sen confirmed to the international president of the SOS KDI, Mr. Dedri Wudra, that there is no country in the world that suffered the most like Cambodia. However, Cambodia does not allow Cambodian children to starve. It is necessary to find shelter and supply for them. Addressing Mr. Dedri Wudra at the offices of the councils and ministries on the afternoon of the 17th of March 2022, Prime Minister Hun Sen expressed his satisfaction with the partnership with the SOS organisation. He says the 20-year relationship with the organisation has not been diminished, which shows that the strength of the partnership between the organisation and the government. He supported the work of the organisation and said that the Cambodian government has also made children a priority and that the government will do what it can to meet the needs of the children. Assistant Prime Minister Ng Sopulat told reporters, Prime Minister said that our world, there is no country that suffered the most like Cambodia. However, Cambodia does not let Cambodian children starve. A good office is not a Cambodian priority for Cambodian officials, but to shelter and needs of children a Cambodian priority. Prime Minister agreed on the work of the SOS to ensure that the children who have stayed in the organisation's children's village can go out and participate in the society with the knowledge to find a job, work according to their dreams. The president of SOS KDI International, Mr. Dedri Wudra, thanked Prime Minister for following SOS to partner with the government and to support the country for more than 20 years in carrying out its mission to help children and to give love and support. In particular, education to help these children make their dreams come true. He reassured Prime Minister that his organisation would do more to help children. On the morning of the 17th of March 2022, Prime Minister Hun Sen attended the inauguration ceremony of the SOS Praveng Children's Village in Praveng Province, the seventh village in Cambodia to help the children's orphans, abandoned children and children with improper care. Speaking at the ceremony, Prime Minister Hun Sen recalled the massacre under the Khmer Rouge regime and the war that left many Cambodian children orphaned at that time. And the government has continued to pay attention to helping children thrive today. Although the problem of the war orphans is no longer present, the government continues to help the children as new resource. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
The SOS Children's Village in Praveng Province is one of many SOS Children's Villages in Cambodia that raises orphans and abandoned children and children facing inappropriate care. The new village in Praveng covers a total area of more than 10,000 square meters and was officially inaugurated on Thursday morning under the presidency of Prime Minister Hun Sen. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has more.
Speaking at the inauguration ceremony of the SOS Children's Village in Village 1, Kampong Lit District, Praveng City, Praveng Province, the Minister of Social Affairs, Wong Sot, said that this is the 7th SOS Children's Village to be built in Cambodia since 1999. The villages are located in the provinces of Phnom Penh, Siem Reap, Battambang, Ratnakiri, Klacheh, Kampot, and now Praveng as well. He confirmed that the construction of this village began on the 5th of December 2018 and was completed on the 7th of February 2020 at a cost of more than $1.5 million. The village began receiving children on the 25th of March 2020, with 27 children currently living under the care of 5 mothers and 10 staff. Minister Wong Sot added, after Cambodia's liberation on the 7th of January 1979, the Cambodian people were saved, revived, and have seen development in all areas until today under the wise leadership of the Prime Minister. In this regard, the field of child welfare is considered one of the main priority areas, which has allowed Cambodia to achieve many of the main Millennium Development Goals related to the 4 basic rights of children, all of which SOS Children Villages International has also contributed to. Since 1999, SOS Children's Village International has built 7 children's villages in Cambodia and provided employment opportunities for a total of 345 people as managers, staff, mothers, and childcare teachers. The organization has also provided services to a total of 755 children and youth living in the villages and provided study opportunities to 1,496 students. The president of SOS Children's Villages International, Dr. Darehe Vodova, also spoke at the inauguration ceremony and said that the installment of a new children's village in Prey province is a testament to the long-standing partnership between the royal government of Cambodia and SOS Children's Villages over the past 2 decades. He extended his thanks to the royal government of Cambodia for allowing SOS Children's Villages to be involved in helping Cambodian children since peace was first restored in the country in the 1990s. Addressing the Prime Minister and the crowd, the organization president said, "Trusting relationships will help them become resilient in face of life's challenges. You understand that resilient children mean a stronger nation. SOS Children Villages as a federation is thankful to you for inviting SOS Children Villages to the Kingdom of Cambodia immediately after restoring peace in the late 90s and entrusting us to work with your government, communities, and children." He also called on the government to further improve policy measures and increase the national budget to reduce situations that pose a risk to the children and consider introducing family-based care in the national care policy and establishing a social safety net around the family to protect children from poverty, violence, and various hardships. He further added that mental health must also be an essential element of the program. Prime Minister Hun Sen then delivered his speech and recalled the history of the SOS Children Villages in Cambodia since the organization began operating in 1999. He thanked the Minister of Interior, Deputy Prime Minister Saw King, for providing the land for the organization to build the new village in Prey Veng and thanked the SOS Children's Villages organization for its long-term continued help to Cambodia. Especially since after the war ended in the country, Cambodia became one of the countries in the world with the highest number of orphans, which was a huge burden for the government to address alone. The Prime Minister said, "We are also proud that our children have received education and training from the orphanages. Children living in the SOS Children Villages can get more education than children staying at home." The SOS Children's Village in Prey Veng has a total of 9 buildings, including an office, an arts building, 4 family houses, a village director and staff house, a nutrition house, and a vocational training building. SOS Children Villages plans to establish an 8th village in Tabong Khmum province in the near future. Dekanin, EAC News.
The UN's top court for disputes between states on Wednesday, March 16th, has ordered Russia to immediately stop military operations in Ukraine, saying it was profoundly concerned by Moscow's use of force. The judges added that Russia must also ensure that other forces under its control or supported by Moscow should not continue the military operation.
Ukraine has filed its case at the International Court of Justice shortly after Russia's invasion began on February 24, saying that Russia's apparent justification that it was acting to prevent a genocide in eastern Ukraine is unfounded. In addition to disputing the grounds for the invasion, Kiev also sought emergency provisional measures against Russia to halt the violence before the case is heard in full. Although the court's rulings are binding, it has no direct means of enforcing them, and in rare cases, countries have ignored them in the past. During hearings earlier this month, Ukraine has said there is no threat of genocide in eastern Ukraine, and the UN's 1948 Genocide Convention, which both countries have signed, does not allow an invasion to prevent one. Russia has said it had skipped the hearings at the ICJ, also known as the World Court, in light of the apparent absurdity of the lawsuit. It later filed a written document arguing the court should not impose any measures. Russian President Vladimir Putin has described the invasion as a special military action needed to protect people who have been subjected to bullying and genocide, referring to those whose first of only language is Russian in eastern Ukraine.
The Russian Federation shall immediately suspend the military operations that it commenced on 24 February 2022 in the territory of Ukraine. The Russian Federation shall ensure that any military or irregular armed units which may be directed or supported by it, as well as any organizations and persons which may be subject to its control or direction, take no steps in furtherance of the military operations referred to in point 1 above. both parties shall refrain from any action which may aggravate or extend the dispute before the court or make it more difficult to resolve. The court is acutely aware of the extent of the human tragedy that is taking place in Ukraine and is deeply concerned about the continuing loss of life and human suffering. The court is profoundly concerned about the use of force by the Russian Federation in Ukraine, which raises very serious issues of international law.
The United Nations seeks to raise over $4 billion at a pledging event on Wednesday for war-torn Yemen, where the humanitarian drive has seen funding dry up even before global attention turned to the crisis in Ukraine.
More than 17 million people in Yemen need food assistance, and this could rise to 19 million in the second half of the year, UN bodies have said. While Ukraine understandably and rightly requires our urgent attention and focus right now, we cannot drop the ball on other crises, said Swedish Foreign Ministry official Carl Skau. UN Aid Chief Martin Griffiths told the same news briefing that aid agencies were already forced to cut back or stop food, health, and other vital assistance in Yemen, where the economy and basic services have collapsed in the 7-year war. This year's response needs nearly $4.3 billion, he has said. Food prices, which doubled last year due to a blockade imposed by Saudi-led coalition battling Yemen's Houthi group, are set to rise further, since a third of the country's wheat comes from Russia and Ukraine. In Aden's Keras camp, Abdul Yahya has said, "We survived with the help of our son, who collects empty plastic bottles and metal cans and sells them, and the kindness of the people. We are exhausted." The UN have received just over half the 3.4 billion needed in 2020, while last year donors gave 2.3 billion. The World Food Programme has warned on Monday that without substantial new funding, mass starvation and famine would follow. Donor budgets were strained by the pandemic, the Afghanistan crisis, and now Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There are also concerns over allegations of Houthi interference in aid flows. The Houthis ousted the government from the capital, Sana'a, in late 2014, prompting the coalition to intervene months later.
China urges the United States to open up its biolabs in Ukraine for independent investigations by international experts and to stop standing alone in obstructing the establishment of a biological weapons convention verification mechanism, said Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian at a regular press conference in Beijing on Tuesday.
Russia has lately disclosed some U.S. research plans and biolabs in Ukraine. One of them, the UP4 project, studies the possibility of the spread of avian viruses through migrating birds. The R781 project considers bats as carriers of pathogens that can be transmitted to humans. Another project code named UP8 is aimed at studying the Congo Crimean hemorrhagic fever virus and hantaviruses. The evidence revealed by Russia shows that the U.S. is trying to obtain means of releasing biological chemical weapons by experimenting on the relations between migrating birds and the spread of viruses. It also shows that the U.S. and some other Western countries are gathering and transferring in a planned manner biological samples in Ukraine and may have conducted biological research targeting different ethnic populations. Zhao has also said, when confronted with evidence revealed by Russia, the U.S. is trying to muddle through by simply dismissing the concerns as disinformation. Is this convincing at all? If the U.S. wants to prove its innocence, it needs to give a full account of its biomilitary activities in a responsible manner. We welcome a joint assessment of the documents provided by Russia under the framework of the UN and the BWC. More importantly, we call on the U.S. to open up those biolabs for independent investigations by international experts and stop standing alone in obstructing the establishment of a BWC verification mechanism. In response to questions on information about the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine deleting certain documents from its website, Zhao has said it is the U.S. side that owes the world a full explanation and clarification. He has pointed out that the concerns of the international community about U.S. biological labs in Ukraine boil down to what the U.S. has done and what has been hidden from the public. Why is the U.S. the only party that is opposed to establishing a biological weapons convention verification regime?
Prime Minister Hun Sen officially received over 500,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccines donated by Hungary on Friday morning. The vaccine shipment had arrived in the kingdom earlier this week on Tuesday, 15th March. EAC News reporter Dekanin has further details.
Speaking at the handover ceremony this morning, the advisor and chargé d'affaires of the Embassy of Hungary in Cambodia, Iswan Barkos, said that as a friend of the kingdom, Hungary is pleased to support Cambodia in its effort to fight COVID-19 and reduce the negative impact of the pandemic on the lives of the Cambodians. He said that the donation of more than 500,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccines today is a new step in bilateral cooperation between Cambodia and Hungary. Added that Hungary is committed to assisting Cambodia's development for the mutual benefit of both countries. At the handover ceremony, Prime Minister Hun Sen thanked the government and people of Hungary for the humanitarian gestures extended to Cambodia as well as to the world. He stressed that vaccination is Cambodia's top priority in preventing the spread of COVID-19 and reopening socio-economic conditions. He said Cambodia is expected to be able to restore and stimulate economic growth by improving key economic drivers affected by COVID-19 and finding new potential drivers from other sectors. This is the second vaccine donation made to Cambodia from a European member state after Poland, who donated 300,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine in February. Currently, the vaccine stock in Cambodia is close to 10 million doses, while the kingdom still plans to buy an additional 3 million doses for extra vaccine security. Some countries have pledged to provide more vaccines to Cambodia, including China, who has pledged to send 5 million vaccines in the first half of 2022. Cambodia has so far vaccinated more than 92% of the total population of 16 million people aged 3 and above. Dekanin, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has urged relevant officials to find ways to reopen the Cambodian embassy in Hungary to boost relations between the two countries. EAC News reporter Straipor Kong has more details.
Speaking at the handover ceremony of more than 500,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine donated by Hungary at the Peace Palace on Friday morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen said that he encouraged the reopening of both the Cambodian and Hungarian embassy in each respective country, as Cambodia and Hungary enter a new chapter in the history of their diplomatic relationship. Cambodia-Hungary diplomatic relation were established on 20 September 1956. This relationship was severed during the Khmer Rouge from 1975 to 1979, but then resumed after the fall of the regime. In November 2020, during the Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter C. Csarto visit to Cambodia, he expressed his desire to reopen the Hungarian embassy in Cambodia after a 25-year hiatus. This intention was welcomed by the Cambodian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhonn. Sripokong, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has stated while the Cambodian economy is recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, a new issue the country must monitor is the war between Russia and Ukraine, which is likely to have a negative impact on global economic growth, including Cambodia. He revealed that the royal government is monitoring this case to formulate policies and to put in place the necessary intervention measures in a timely manner. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
Speaking at the handover ceremony of more than 500,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccines donated by Hungary at the Peace Palace on Friday morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen said that Cambodia expects to be able to restore and stimulate economic growth by improving key economic barriers affected by COVID-19 and identifying potential new areas in other sectors. He said that although the economy in the tourism sector has not yet recovered, other key sectors are recovering and promoting continuous growth, which ended Cambodia's economy and to achieve a growth of 3% in 2021, which may increase up to 5% in 2022. However, the Prime Minister expressed concern that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine could be a major challenge for the world economy.
ដើម្បីរៀបចំគោលនយោបាយនិងដាក់ចេញនូវវិធានការអន្តរាគមន៍ចាំបាច់ឲ្យបានទាន់ពេលវេលា
On 24th of February, Russia launched a large-scale attack on Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin has cited the need to denuclearize Ukraine to protect the Donbas Republic and ensure Russia would not under NATO threat from the Ukraine territory as the reason for the launch of Russia's military operation. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has led to a series of US-led sanctions on Russia from the West and ultimately on Russian oil and gas companies, which has provided the country its main source of income. These sanctions have had secondary effects of spreading to the crisis of Ukraine across the world, as oil prices continue to rise and hurt the economy as well as people's livelihoods. The current crisis is also affecting the price of fuel in Cambodia, which currently stands at 5,300 riel per litre for both regular gasoline and diesel. Anthony Ellis, EAC News. An additional 20 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to Cambodia. This statement was made during a bilateral meeting between the Prime Minister Hun Sen and the Chinese President Xi Jinping by telephone on the afternoon of 18th of March 2022. Of the 20 million doses, 5 million will arrive in Cambodia by the end of March, he said. In the same meeting, there was also discussion on the construction of the COVID-19 vaccine factories in Cambodia in the near future. Currently, Cambodia has nearly 10 million doses of vaccines available in its warehouse, while more than 92% of total population of 16 million people have been vaccinated.
The 2022 spring equinox will occur this coming Monday, 21st March, where temple-goers in Siem Reap will get to behold the mesmerizing sight of the sun rising exactly over the central peak of Angkor Wat. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis will tell you more.
An eclipse is when the geometric center of the sun crosses the equator line of the Earth, an event which occurs twice a year. The March eclipse, also known as the spring or vernal eclipse, makes the first day of spring in the Northern Hemisphere. The archaeologist of the head of the Department of the Preservation of the Temples in Angkor Park and Preservative Archaeology of the Adspara Authority, Im Sokodati, has confirmed that temple goers can witness the sunrise exactly over the central peak of Angkor Wat twice a year during the two eclipses. He added that the alignment of the sun with Angkor Wat temples is not a coincidence, but rather a feature of the brilliant architectural design, mathematical calculations, and astronomical considerations of the Khmer ancestors who initially planned for it. Positioned and built the temples to have the sun rise exactly over the top of Angkor Wat during the occurrence of the eclipse, to highlight its natural phenomenon. He said that this special event is a miracle that can maybe only be witnessed at Angkor Wat Temple in Cambodia. In 2022, the special sunrise event over Angkor Wat can be witnessed during the two eclipses of the year, the first of the 21st of March and the second on the 22nd of September. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry has announced on Thursday, March 17th, that it firmly rejects U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's comment that China's unwillingness to condemn Russia is inconsistent with China's position on the UN Charter.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Zhao Lijian, say at a regular press conference that China has noticed that when U.S. Secretary of State Blinken made such a statement, he falsely claimed that China was on the wrong side of history. Such remarks are not helpful for solving the problem, and China firmly opposes it. Zhao has added that China always believes that sovereignty and territorial integrity of states should be upheld. In an interview with U.S. nonprofit radio network NPR on Wednesday, March 16, Blinken has said the fact that China has not stood strongly against Russia's aggression in Ukraine flies in the face of China's commitments as a permanent member of the UN Security Council responsible for maintaining peace and security.
President Joe Biden has announced an additional $800 million in security assistance to Ukraine on Wednesday, March 16th, even as his position on a no-fly zone did not change after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's urgent appeal to the U.S. Congress for military help to fend off a Russian invasion. Addressing Zelensky's remarks in his speech, Biden has said the United States has offered Ukraine $1 billion in security aid, adding that America will continue to give Ukraine weapons to fight and defend themselves, offer humanitarian relief, and also support Ukraine's economy with additional financial assistance.
The new package on its own is going to provide unprecedented assistance to Ukraine and includes 800 anti-aircraft systems to stop Russian planes and helicopters attacking Ukrainians. At Zelensky's request, Washington will help Ukraine acquire additional long-range missile anti-aircraft systems. It will also supply 9,000 anti-armor systems, drones, and 7,000 small arms such as machine guns, shotguns, and grenade launchers that will help civilians fighting to defend their country.
Now I'm once again using my presidential authority to activate an additional security assistance to continue to help Ukraine fend off Russia's assault. An additional $800 million in assistance. That brings the total of new U.S. security assistance to Ukraine to $1 billion just this week. These are direct transfers of equipment from our Department of Defense to the Ukrainian military to help them as they fight against this invasion. And I thank the Congress for appropriating these funds. This new package on its own is going to provide unprecedented assistance to Ukraine. It includes 800 anti-aircraft systems to make sure the Ukrainian military can continue to stop the planes and helicopters that have been attacking their people and to defend their Ukrainian airspace. And at the request of President Zelensky, we have identified and are helping Ukraine acquire additional longer-range anti-aircraft systems and the munitions for those systems. And this will include drones, which demonstrates our commitment to sending our most cutting-edge systems to Ukraine for its defense. And we're not doing this alone. Our allies and partners have stepped up to provide significant shipments of security assistance and will continue to help facilitate these deliveries as well. The United States and our allies and partners are fully committed to surging weapons of assistance to the Ukrainians. And more will be coming as we source additional stocks of equipment that we're ready to transfer. Now I want to be honest with you. This could be a long and difficult battle, but the American people will be steadfast in our support of the people of Ukraine in the face of Putin's immoral, unethical attacks on civilian population.
The new funds will come from a spending bill Biden has signed into the law that includes $13.6 billion in new aid to Ukraine. In his address to Congress, Zelensky has compared the attacks in Ukraine to the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor that put the United States into World War II and begged lawmakers and Biden directly for more help. This is a terror that Europe has not seen for 80 years, and they are asking for our life for an answer to this terror from the whole world. Is this a lot to ask for? To create a no-fly zone over Ukraine to save people? Zelensky has asked through its interpreter. If this is too much to ask, we offer an alternative, he has said. You know what kind of defense systems we need, adding that he knows the United States has them. Biden has referred to the creation of a no-fly zone over Ukraine as World War III, and the Pentagon has refused requests to send fighter jets to Ukraine. Earlier on Wednesday, Russia and Ukraine both emphasized newfound scope for compromise as peace talks were set to resume 3 weeks into a Russian assault that has so far failed to topple the Ukrainian government. On Tuesday, the White House has said Biden will travel to Brussels for a March 24 NATO summit on Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which Moscow terms a special military operation to disarm and denazify its neighbor. Biden has ratcheted up sanctions imposed on Russia in recent days. He has called for a suspension of Russia's trading status that affords its exported products lower tariffs in the international arena and announced a ban on Russian oil and other energy exports.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said on Wednesday, March 16th, that the West needed to end its dependency on Russian energy, as it allowed Russian President Vladimir Putin to hold them ransom. Johnson has arrived in the United Arab Emirates and will later visit Saudi Arabia as part of efforts to secure additional oil flows to replace Russian hydrocarbons and increase diplomatic pressure on Russian President Vladimir Putin over his invasion of Ukraine.
United Kingdom's premier has promised to set out a new national energy strategy next week and highlighted a new Saudi investment in a green aviation fuel program in Britain. Johnson has also confirmed that Ukraine would not be joining NATO anytime soon, adding the decision on the future of Ukraine was for the people of Ukraine and not Moscow.
So if you look at what Putin's doing in Ukraine, it's causing global uncertainty and a spike in the price of oil. That feeds through to the forecourts in the UK. Everybody can see the effect of the increase in gas prices. That's coming through, and we've got to make sure that we're prepared and that we're taking steps to mitigate that, to help people with the cost of living. So next week we're going to be setting out the energy strategy for the UK. Massive jump forward on renewables, more nuclear, using our own hydrocarbons more effectively. Also looking at what we can do to source hydrocarbons from places other than Russia. We've got to get off Russian hydrocarbons. We need to double the pace of our construction of wind farms. We're already one of the biggest producers of offshore wind power in the world. When we look at the dependency that the West in particular has built up on Putin's hydrocarbons, on Putin's oil and gas, we can see what a mistake that was, because he's been able to blackmail the West, to hold Western economies to ransom. We need independence.
And now for a look at news making international headlines this Wednesday, 16th March.
The extreme weather brought severe damage to several villages in Kerek district, East Java province, when it triggered a muddy flash flood on Friday. Aside from the local who was killed, another 178 livestock, 3 cows, 5 goats, 20 pigs, and 150 chickens were found dead after the water subsided in the farming communities in Bangay Regency. A car was dragged by the flood currents into the river, while 8 houses were severely damaged that submerged communities underwater 4 feet high. Head of the Center for Disaster Data, Information and Communication at the Indonesian National Disaster Management Agency, Abdul Mugari, has said there were 6 villages affected by the massive flash flood. A resident is reported to have died due to this flash flood. We, together with officers in the field, have evacuated the affected residents. Logistics assistance has also been distributed. Muhari has added that heavy rain was to be expected to continue in the coming days, warning residents to stay alert.
The U.S. consulate in Mexican border, a city of Nuevo Laredo, will close temporarily after it was hit by gunfire overnight, and the trailers were set ablaze on the roads downtown after the gangster lead arrest, authorities have said on Monday, 14th of March. Shots against the consulate and the Mexican military premises were reported after gunfighting and the pursuits in part of the city. The Ministry of Public Security in the state of Tamaulipas has said on the statement. Suspected gang members have paralysed traffic in Nuevo Laredo early Monday by blocking roads with spike strips and setting fire trucks, to the statement has said. The US consulate has advised its employees to stay indoors and urged US citizens to do the same or avoid the area. The consulate will be temporarily closed to the public, the Mexican government has said later in a statement. A senior Tamaulipas official has confirmed it was one collateral fatal due to the violence. The gunfight has followed the arrest of Juan Generado Tevera, or El Hervo, on Sunday, March the 13th. Mexico's government has said he is in a statement. Tevera is facing US extradition over drug trafficking and money laundering, as well as state-level charges for the murder, terrorism, extortion, and criminal association, it is added. Trevino is on the list of US Border Patrol's most wanted criminals, according to media reports. The Mexican statement has named Trevino as the leader of the cartel of the northeast of the branch of the Zetas gang, as well as the boss hitman group Tropas de Inferno, or Troop from Hell. The arrest represents a forceful blow to the cartel's power in the region, Mexican's government has said. The government has also said in a later statement it was committed to security cooperation with the United States, and the crime organizations involved in the incident will face the weight of the law in both countries.
Part of a hill has collapsed in northern Peru on Tuesday, March 15, burying at least 60 homes, the government has said, with harrowing images on social media showing whole apartment buildings being covered by the landslide. According to local authorities, the landslide has affected between 60 and 80 homes. There was no confirmed death as of Tuesday at noon, but rescue squads were on the scene searching for people. The collapse has happened in an area that is home to mining workers and not safe for the construction of homes. Peru has a high rate of housing informalities, with homes often built on the edges of rivers or on the sides of hills prone to landslides.
And now for a look at news-making international headlines this Thursday, 17th March.
A powerful earthquake with a magnitude of 7.3 jolted Japan's northeast coast on Wednesday, shaking buildings as far as Tokyo, where it left hundreds of thousands without power and reviving memories of devastating quake 11 years earlier. The tremor hit off the coast of Fukushima Prefecture, some 275 kilometers northeast of Tokyo, and a depth of 60 kilometers, the Japan Meteorological Agency has said. It has triggered a fire alarm at a turbine at the crippled Fukushima Daiichi plant, authorities have said, adding that they were checking the situation. That plant was devastated by a magnitude 9 earthquake and following tsunami in March 2011. Regarding the damage to the nuclear facilities, no irregularities have been identified at Onagawa and Fukushima No. 2 nuclear power plants at the moment. We are still checking status of Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant, said the Japanese Cabinet Secretary Hirokazu Matsuno. Tokyo Electric Power Company has said that around 2 million households were without power, including 700,000 in the capital, and that it was checking the condition of reactors at Fukushima and other plants, public broadcaster NHK reported. Authorities has also issued a tsunami warning for the region of as high as 1.3 feet, with public broadcaster NHK reporting waves of 8 inches in some places.
Three people were killed and 5 wounded after shelling caused a fire at a market in the eastern Ukraine city of Kharkiv, Ukraine State Emergency Services have said on Wednesday, March 16. Shelling hit the market, a warehouse with food and humanitarian aid, and 2 schools. Firefighters have worked to extinguish the dense flames engulfing the market damaged by shelling. At a warehouse, firefighters worked amid thick smoke rising from the building. One of the firefighters has suffered injuries during the rescue and was driven away in an ambulance. How can one destroy a school? What do the Russian occupiers do here? How can anyone fire rockets in an educational facility, said the school director Lilia Chalet. A wall of children drawings are still standing amid the destruction. Shelling has also hit the Kharkiv Institute of Further Education. This was a maths classroom and this one I cannot remember. Lecture, I think, said the man walking destroyed classrooms.
Ukrainian nurse Oksana Martinenko and her colleagues have 21 babies to look after at a makeshift clinic in a residential basement on the outskirts of Kyiv, all of them surrogates whose parent cannot come to collect them because of the war. All the while, she has her own family to worry about. Her children are in the region around Sumy, a city some 320 kilometers east of the capital, which has been bombarded by the Russian forces. It is too dangerous for Martinenko to try to reach them, so they are living with their grandmother. We haven't been able to get home since February 24th, she has said. Martinenko calls her family when she can to see if they are safe and whether they manage to sleep at night. Ukrainians across the country are dashing between homes and air raid shelters as advancing Russian forces attack cities and towns. In the bare surroundings of the clinic, one nurse pushes a baby carriage with one hand and holds an infant in the other as she and her colleagues comfort the children. Babies lie in a line of small plastic beds and bottles are stacked up to be sterilized. Staff have said that 2 couples, one from Germany and one from Argentina, had made it to Kyiv to unite with their surrogate children, but it was not clear when they would be able to take them out of the country. Ukraine is an international surrogacy hub involving thousands of babies each year in normal times. According to some estimates, many of them taken abroad by foreigners. The practice has raised concerns among rights groups and some former surrogate mothers over the physical and psychological costs of the process and the risk of exploitation of women and their babies in poorer countries. An exhausted Antonina Yefimovich, also a nurse, said that staff were trapped and working around the clock to care for the children. We don't have time to rest now. We try to take short naps, to swap. It is tough, Yefimovich said.
And now for a look at news making international headlines this Friday, 18th March.
A fire at Walmart distribution center spewed out a large and dense dark cloud of smoke on Wednesday, March 16, in Plainfield, Indiana. How the blaze got started Wednesday still wasn't clear, but luckily the 1,000 employees at this Walmart distribution center made it out safely. A firefighter received what was described as a minor injury. Some employees say the lack of injuries is because of emergency training the employees had just had a few days before Wednesday's fire. We thought it was another training until we were out and we saw the black smoke coming out from the roof, one of the employees has said. We didn't see smoke when we were outside, and then when we heard the noise, which was like a crisp explosion, that's when we got scared and we all started running, another employee recalls. The fire started on the second floor from the area that is specifically for keeping chemicals and products related to chemicals.
A footage taken on Thursday, March the 17th shows the damage caused by a strong earthquake which had struck shortly before midnight in northeastern Japan. A derailed bullet train was seen on the bridge which had sections of concrete eroded from its pillars. A local culture centre had parts of its roof littered over the seats inside its auditorium. 4 people have died and at least 107 people reported injured, several seriously, with 4,300 households also still without water by mid-morning. The tremor has received memories of Japan's biggest quake of magnitude of 9.1, which struck on March 11, 2011, in the same area of which includes Fukushima Prefecture and nuclear power plant crippled by the tsunami and meltdown.
An armored garments manufacturer has increased its efforts to meet the surging demand for body armor from Ukraine. Miguel Caballero, a bulletproof clothing producer, has received bulletproof vests and helmets orders from the United States, Spain, the United Kingdom, and Belgium governments to be donated to Ukraine. The executive president and founder of Miguel Caballero MC Armor, Miguel Caballero has said there was over-demand for their products since the war broke out in Ukraine. He has also said that their mission is to protect the life of the human being. It is to give people a second chance. His workers and him are aware of what they are doing. They try their best and comply with the demands of a prompt and efficient signature. As a Colombian, I leave a factory that knows how to do things and hopes to leave a legacy to my country of high-quality protection elements. So far, we have sent 6 packages, a total of 2,400 vests and 2,400 helmets to Ukraine, he has added. The Colombian company has been manufacturing armored garments for 30 years, with 470 employees and averages $10 million a year. Its products are used by over 40 heads of state, among which are presidents, kings, and personalities around the world.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia.
Chelsea put aside their off-field turmoil to keep a grip on third place in the Premier League with a 1-0 win over Newcastle United, while Arsenal leapfrogged Manchester United into fourth with a 2-0 victory over Leicester City on Sunday.
Everton's plummet towards the region zone continued as they lost 1-0 at home, and Wolverhampton Wanderers by Leeds United gained some respite with the last gasp of 2-1 win over the bottom club Norwich City. Leeds Manchester City, who had 3 points ahead of Liverpool, are at Crystal Palace, and Monday Liverpool won 2-0 at Brighton's on Sunday. The 19-year gain of Chelsea's owner and backer Roman Abramovich effectively come an end this week after the UK government imposed sanctions on the Russian, with the club operating under a special licence. With the club up for sale and dealing with a series of restrictions on their current operations, it was perhaps not surprising that Chelsea was far from their best against Eddie Howe's improving Newcastle.
There are some circumstances we cannot influence, and that is at some point not so nice because you have no strings to pull and no actions to do to help. But on the other side, it gives you the freedom to focus on the stuff we can influence, and this is our performances and show the spirit. Chelsea is much more than only the first team in Premier League. It's a massive club with huge tradition, and there are so hundreds of people who maybe, I'm pretty sure, very more than our players and the staff, me included, and for them it's important that we show the spirit and we give them a bit of distraction and kind of hope and show what we are about. We are about football because we love the game. No, my last information is that we have a plane, but and we can go by plane and can go back by plane. If not, we go by train. If not, we go by bus. If not, I drive a 7-seater, honestly. I will do. Yeah, you can mark my words. I will do. I will arrive there. I mean, if you ask me like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if I would join a Champions League match at the sideline and what I was willing to do, I would say, okay, when do I have to be where? And why should this change? I will be there and we will be there.
There were Saudi Arabia flags in the away end today.
Okay.
There were 81 executions in Saudi Arabia yesterday.
Yeah.
And they have a war in Yemen.
Yeah. Of course they have.
Your club is in your situation. Do you find it weird at all that one club is in one situation and one club isn't? Wow.
Yeah, it's a big one. And unfortunately, the situation is like this also for the owners of Newcastle, and that affects in the end. Yeah, it is. What can I say? But I don't want to point the finger because, comparing yourself or blaming the others does not make the situation for us a different situation. And I think, the statement that we condemn war and the action from Russia towards Ukraine, there's no doubt. But we are facing the consequences actually at the moment, and this is where the focus is. I hope you can understand that.
But with the match seemingly heading for a draw, Durigo launched a long pass over Newcastle's defence, Kai Havertz, and the Germans' brilliant control allowed him to fire past Martin de Bukova for his fourth goal in 3 league games. Chelsea's German manager Thomas Tuchel said that the team had a responsibility to those at the club facing a much more difficult situation than playing off and coaching staff.
The Beijing 2022 Winter Paralympics ended on Sunday, March 13th with a closing ceremony at the National Stadium in the Chinese capital that carried the message of love after a game that began with political chaos.
依依惜别的浓浓情谊。
Russian and Belarusian athletes were barred from competing by the International Paralympic Committee on the eve of the Games, following threats of boycotts by other teams over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Once the Games started through, Ukraine shone, ending their campaign second on the medal tables with a total of 29, 11 of which were gold. Host China topped the medal standings with 18 golds in their overall tally of 61, with Canada 8 golds, seeing them finish third. Differences here did not divide us. They united us together for a shared future. Humankind hopes to live in a world where dialogue prevails. Our movement, the Paralympic movement, hopes world leaders be inspired by the actions of Paralympians. Finally, the time has come for all to declare the Beijing 2022 Paralympic Winter Games closed. I call upon Paralympic athletes all over the world to meet again in Milano and Cortina in Italy in 4 years' time, where once again you will inspire and excite the world with your sporting excellence.
Daniil Medvedev lost his #1 world ranking after being beaten by Gael Monfils 4-6, 6-3, 6-1 in the third round of Indian Wells on Monday, while Rafa Nadal beat Britain's Daniel Evans 7-5, 6-3 to stay unbeaten in 2022.
Monfils let out a roar as he secured an upset in the 6th match point in front of an adoring California crowd with a backhand winner to set up a meeting with Spanish teenager Carlos Alcaraz in the 4th round. "I'm quite happy right now. I'm in my zone," Monfils said. "I moved quite good and then I changed the speed quite a lot." The Frenchman handed Medvedev the break in the 9th game of the first set, and with the pair double faults and the 2 forehand errors, as the reigning US Open champion dropped just 4 points on his serve in the opener. But Medvedev lost the momentum in the second set, unable to convert on the 5 or 6 breakpoint opportunities. Monfils broke him in the 4th game with a backhand winner and again in the 8th with a fiery forehand. Overcoming obvious exhaustion, Monfils won the first 4 games of the final sets as Medvedev was unable to set up a single breakpoint opportunity. It was the first time in 13 years that the 35-year-old Monfils beat the #1 ranked player in the world. 20 times Grand Slam winner Novak Djokovic is expected to return to the top of the world rankings when they are updated. Nadal sent Evans packing with a routine with the win extended and the unbreak streak with his 17-0 after winning the men's record-breaking 21st Grand Slam title in Australian Open. Down in the early break, the Spaniard levelled it with the 8th game and again broke Evans to close out in the first set and seized the momentum. He dropped just 2 first set points in the second set, breaking his opponent early and wrapping up his 400th Masters match win with a forehand winner before thrusting his hands in the air to cheer from the crowd. He reached the 4th round after staging a breathtaking 3-set comeback on Saturday against the American Sebastian Korda, and said after the match he was pleased to wrap up Monday's affair in a tighter fashion. "Happy to be able to keep going in the tournament," Nadal said. "I think after a few games I've been playing better and better."
Dutch prosecutors intend to press attempted murder charges against Spartak Moscow soccer player Quincy Promes, they said on Wednesday 9th March, in order to ensure his case proceeds as quickly as possible.
Promes was arrested in connection with the July 2020 stabbing in the Dutch town of Abercrombie. It later emerged that the alleged victim was Promes' cousin and the incident took place in a fight after a family party. Promes has denied involvement. Prosecutors had initially intended to charge Promes, a former Ajax Amsterdam player and Dutch international, with attempted manslaughter and aggressive assault. But after the alleged victim's lawyer asked for the heavier charge, Promes' lawyer agreed. In order to ensure the case proceeded as quickly as possible, hearings are planned for March the 31st, the public prosecutor's office said in a statement. Promes 30 was playing for Ajax at the time of the incident but moved to Spartak Moscow in February 2021. He scored a goal in Spartak's 2-0 win over Dynamo Moscow on Sunday the 6th of March.
Bahrain is getting ready to host the first race of the 2022 Formula One World Championship on Sunday, 20th March.
Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen lead F1 into a new era this weekend as the sport seeks to move from one of its most controversial seasons with a fresh start and plenty of change. New look cars, heavier and with bigger wheels, but withdrawn aerodynamics to make overtaking easier have raised hopes of the general shake-up as part of the most far-reaching overhaul in decades. Michael Massey, the race director whose decisions left Hamilton feeling robbed of the record 8th title in Abu Dhabi Showdown last December, has gone, while Mohammed bin Salim has replaced Jean Todt as head of the governing FIA. While last year's title contenders will be renewing their fierce rivalry, the battle looks set to stretch beyond the private duel. Champion Vesperton, 24, has started the season at Sakhir on Sunday, March the 20th, with the number 1 on his Red Bull for the first time. Hamilton, meanwhile, has hungry new teammate in fellow Briton George Russell, arriving from Williams and eager for a first win. Both drivers already warned the fans not to expect too much. With Mercedes bouncing on the straights, downforce is gained or lost. The team chasing a record extending 9th successive constructors title, and Hamilton can never be written off, however. Red Bull and Vesperton have been pleased with their car's performance while highlighting a growing threat from Ferrari, climbing back into contention after years of underperforming. The Italian team has not won a race since 2019 or the championships since 2008, but ending at least one of those 2 droughts no longer looks a distant dream.
Manchester United's interim manager Ralph Rangnick took aim at Atletico Madrid for time-wasting antics after his team was eliminated from the Champions League by the Spanish champions on Tuesday.
A Renan Lodi header in the 41st minute earned a 1-0 win on the 8th for Atletico and a 2-1 aggregate victory that puts them into the last 8. United had been on top before conceding against the run of play, and they threw themselves forward after the break but came up against a solid Spanish defense. Atletico coach Diego Simeone was full of praise for his team's commitment. This team will dive into a swimming pool whether there is water in it or not, he said. Simeone also said he did not notice United fans hurling objects at him as he rushed off the pitch following the match. The incident will likely feature in the UEFA match delegates reports on the game, and that would trigger a disciplinary investigation and any eventual sanctions against the home team.
And against a team like Atletico, it's highly important that you score the first goal yourself. And if you don't do that, then it's even more important not to concede a goal. And 1 minute before half-time, we conceded that goal in a transitional moment. I believe that there was a foul on Anthony Elanga before that, but the linesman and the referee didn't see it that way. And that's why we were 1-0 down at half-time. I think we shouldn't have been 1-0 down at half-time. We were the better team in the first half. But as I said, it's important to score the first goal yourself against the team, even more so against a team like Atletico. And in the second half, it was, well, I don't know if the game was played for more than 2 minutes without being interrupted, without somebody lying on the floor. And I think there were some curious refereeing decisions. I wouldn't necessarily say that were decisive. Maybe the one before they scored. But I think he made it pretty easy for the referee, for Atletico, to do their time-wasting antics, and that didn't make it any easier for us. It was frustrating, difficult for us in the second half. We tried everything. We had 2 or 3 moments after set pieces, but from normal play we didn't produce that many chances.
The owners of the U.S. baseball team, the Chicago Cubs, have teamed up with Citadel founder Ken Griffin to work on a bid to buy English Premier League soccer club Chelsea, a spokesperson for Griffin confirmed on Wednesday, 16th March.
The Cubs owners, the Ricketts family and the Griffin have formed an investment group that is set to make a formal offer for the London club on Friday, March 18th. The bid does not involve Citadel, the hedge fund business owning Griffin. The Ricketts family said they would be leading the investment group that will make the bid. As long-time operators of an iconic professional sports team, the Ricketts family and their partners understand the importance of investing for success on the pitch. While respecting the traditions of the club, the fans and the community, the Ricketts family invested history as they won 5 Premier League titles, 5 FA Cups and the Champions League twice. Chelsea is ranked by Forbes as the 7th most valuable club in the world soccer at $3.2 billion. The club is 3rd in the league standings, 11 points behind leaders Manchester City, while they are set to play Lille in the Championship League's last 16th second leg on Wednesday.
Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine goes against the Olympic spirit, and the time will come to decide on his country's participation in the Paris 2024 Games, City Mayor Anne Hidalgo said on Wednesday, 16th March.
Hidalgo, who will still be mayor when the 2024 Games are held unless he is a surprise winner in next month's presidential election, said Russian President Vladimir Putin was waging an unjust war. For me, the Olympic Games are also a part of this world of geopolitics, Hidalgo said in an interview. What is happening today does not effectively put Russia in this grouping of peaceful countries. Russia calls its action in Ukraine a special operation to disarm and denazify Ukraine. The International Olympic Committee's executive board in late February recommended that sports federations ban Russian and Belarusian athletes and officials from competing in events following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Russian Olympic Committee categorically disagreed with the IOC. As things stand, the Russian Olympic Committee is not suspended and Russia is cleared to compete in Paris. This sport had a role to play in global diplomacy, said Hidalgo, who was in Japan in August to receive the Olympic flag at the close of the Tokyo Summer Games, postponed from a year earlier due to the coronavirus. She declined to say more on when the appropriate time would be for Olympic organizers to decide on Russia. I am very pragmatic and will make a decision when the moment comes. That's it, Hidalgo said, adding that Putin was waging a war against a country that has the right to self-determination. Vladimir Putin is breaching international law. He does not recognize the existence of international law. We will have to take that into account. Paris mayor says, "We'll see. I'm very pragmatic and we will make the decision at the time we need to. That's it." Today, Russia and Vladimir Putin especially are a leader that is directing a war against a country that is rightly entitled to its self-determination. Vladimir Putin is breaching international law, does not recognize the existence of international law and multilateralism, and we should of course take that into account. Any decision on Russia's participation would lie with the IOC. In 1920, Austria, Bulgaria, Turkey, Hungary, and Germany, defeated in World War I, were not invited to take part in the Antwerp Olympics. In 1948, after the end of World War II, Germany and Japan were suspended from the London Games. Russian athletes competed under the Russian Olympic Committee banner at this year's Beijing Winter Olympics because of their poor doping track record.
Chelsea coach Thomas Tuchel paid tribute to everyone at Chelsea after the defending champions reached the Champions League quarter-finals following a week of turmoil off the pitch.
The London club operating on a special licence from the British government that limited their spending and impact and player. So play your role and play the limit. Tuchel, who led Chelsea to a European title in his first season in charge, told News Conference. Everybody plays a huge part at the moment. Everyone around the team, the whole 80 people who work at Cobham. We are competitive and we are competitive no matter what. Chelsea proved in the Perry Murray Stadium with a ruthless performance with Christian Publix and Chelsea Apelkacheks, according to either side, interval to make the most of their opponent's lapse in concentration.
Thanks for ruining my evening.
At the moment, unless you get a new owner, that's the case. How much of a setback is that?
Well,
Gary, at the moment, we've just come off the pitch.
I was in such a good mood.
So, yeah.
Can we speak about it when it's confirmed?
Yeah.
It is confirmed.
Okay.
So let's wait for the confirmation of the confirmation. Well, let's see. I mean, today I'm happy that we are in the last eight. Last eight is top again, and a lot of things to overcome, and we're so happy and so proud. So let's see. It's the first thing that I hear now, and yes, and in 3 days we play Middlesbrough in the cup, and then we have a national break, and then I think about a good answer. It is so clear. Chelsea is so clear what it demands from every employee and from every player. So play your role and play it to the limit and live up to it and take your responsibility. And this is what Chelsea is about, and that sharpens your mentality and that brings out the best in you, because it's normal to do it on a daily basis. And because this mentality is installed over years and years and a decade, that's why it's possible that we can stay focused is like it plays a big part in why we can stay focused and produce results as we do in the moment now, when things are like uncertain and things are unstable around us, because it's already there and we live it on a daily basis. Of course, we try to encourage the players and to support the players in the best way possible. But still, I'm very proud that they can do it like this, and everybody plays a huge part in at the moment. It's about responsibility also. We have the responsibility. We are still I feel still very, very privileged. I think everybody is still very privileged. So we take the responsibility that we have. Once you work for Chelsea, this is what you do. And you adapt to the level of talent, be it a player or a coach or a member of staff. That's once you work for Chelsea, you work at the limit, and this is what you do on a daily basis. And this is what helps. We stick together and try to overcome the situation together. That helps also, that we don't do individual sport. And I'm very proud. I'm very happy.
Regardless of the result, Tuchel said the context would not provide him with excuses and his team is focused on the pitch performance. There's always a thin line as to why things are different and excuses. We have a responsibility and we take that. Once you work for Chelsea, you work at the limit, and it's what you will do daily basis. Looking ahead of the quarterfinals, the Germans said Chelsea would again be tough to beat. I want us to be the team nobody wants to play. That's the role we want to see ourselves in the last 8, he said.
Rafael Nadal toppled big serving American Riley Opelka 7-6, 7-6 to remain perfect on the year, while unseeded Serbian Miomir Kekmanovic stunned world number 6 Matteo Berrettini 6-3, 6-7, 6-4 in the 4th round of Indian Wells.
Despite Opelka's serve reaching speeds as high as 147 miles per hour, the Spaniard was better in their rallies, dictating points and electing errors from the baseline. After a high-level first set, Nadal wobbled in the second, play a sloppy service game to go down a break 3-2, and he tapped his head in frustrations during the changeover. But he regained his focus, breaking back to level at 4-4 and remaining perfect on the serve in the second tiebreaker. He sealed the victory with a beautifully constructed point that pushed Opelka off the court. He is a very difficult player to play against with his huge serve and huge forehand, but I think I played my best match of the tournament so far, Nadal said in an on-court interview. Nadal stood as far back off the baseline as the court would allow on his returns and often had to hit them at head height or higher. It's not only about the speed, the spin is also sometimes difficult to read. Sometimes it's coming with topspin, but sometimes with slice. It's a great victory for me against one of the toughest opponents I can play, and I'm very happy. I can't thank you enough for all the positive energy that I received every single day here. Nadal is 19-0 to start the season, and if he can win his 4th title in the California desert, he will move into a tie with Novak Djokovic for the most Masters, 1,000 titles with 37. Rafael Nadal dug deep last night to beat the merciful wildcard Nick Kyrgios 7-6, 5-7, 6-4 in a blockbuster quarterfinal match that lived up to the hype at Indian Wells.
West Ham United defender Kurt Zouma and his brother Johan are set to be charged under the Animal Welfare Act after they posted a video that showed them abusing a pet cat, according to animal charity RSPCA.
The viral video filmed by Johan and posted on social media last month showed Kurt dropping the tabby cat and kicking it across the floor. Following a full and thorough investigation, we have started the process of bringing a prosecution against Kurt Zouma and Johan Zouma under the Animal Welfare Act, an RSPCA spokesperson said. The two cats continue to be cared for by the RSPCA. We will be in a position to release more information once a court date is confirmed. West Ham said they were aware of the RSPCA statement and said Kurt was cooperating fully with the investigation. It is our understanding that Kurt's cats have been checked by a vet, are in good health, and have suffered no physical injuries, the club said in a statement. For legal reasons, neither Kurt or the club will be making any further comment at this time. The video caused outrage and led to club sponsors cutting ties with Kurt's Premier League club, West Ham, while Adidas also dropped their sponsorships of the defender. However, he continued to be selected by manager David Moyes. West Ham said Zuma was fined the maximum amount possible last month, with British media reporting the fine was 2 weeks' wages. The 27-year-old who apologized had accepted the fine, which was to be donated to animal welfare charities. Johan had been dropped by his club Dagenham and Ridgebreed after the allegation last month, but the fifth tier side said he will now be available to play. Dagenham and Ridgebreed FC note the decision of the RSPCA to charge Johan Zuma under the Animal Welfare Act 2006, they said in a statement. 4 weeks have now elapsed, however, since the incident, and the club feels that any further suspension from the team would be detrimental to both the club and Johan. A decision has been made, therefore, for Johan to be available to play.
Although the coronavirus pandemic is still present in our lives, people around the world celebrate St. Patrick's Day in their own way, creating joy in whatever way they can.
In America, photographer Cheryl Colville captured the view of a fountain in Fountain Hills, Arizona, which had its water dyed green on the 12th of March in an early celebration of St. Patrick's Day. Meanwhile, the Chicago River was also dyed green per the city's St. Patrick's Day tradition since 1962. It takes about 50 pounds of dye and 2 large boats to spread the change of color of the river to green. In New York, the city celebrated Irish heritage with a big and small parade, with soldiers and bagpipe players marching down Fifth Avenue. In California, Anna Schwab lovingly refers to her pets as the rescued boys. She involves them in the St. Patrick's Day celebrations by dressing them up in emerald bowls and giving them dog-friendly fake beers. Usually, parade goers, participants, locals, and tourists would pack the streets of Ireland, where the holiday originated, to witness the extravagant St. Patrick's Day parade. However, due to the pandemic, Ireland has postponed their St. Patrick's Day parades this year. But still, the people have found their own ways to celebrate. A father pulls his children around a cart decorated with Irish flags and stuffed animals in their backyard. The staff at a nursing home in Offaly dressed in holiday attire to hold a small and fun parade to bring cheer and festivity to the residents staying at the facility. And a child excitedly shows off his parade of toys to celebrate St. Patrick's Day at home.
And finally, Polish Representative Karolina Białowska wins Miss World 2021, which was held in Puerto Rico on Wednesday, 16 March 2022. The 23-year-old model, who is studying for her master's degree in administration, was surprised and honored to be crowned Miss World.
The 70th edition of the Miss World Beauty pageant was postponed from December 2021 due to the coronavirus outbreak, where a number of contestants and staff contracted COVID-19. The pageant was finally held this year at the Coca-Cola Music Hall in Puerto Rico. Miss World musical director Angel Valdez conducted musical performances by the Puerto Rico Philharmonic Orchestra. Miss World 2019 Tony Ann Singh also performed a song for peace. Meanwhile, there was no representative for Miss World 2020 as the pageant was cancelled that year due to the pandemic. This year, because of a tie, the top 12 included 13 candidates from Vietnam, Mexico, Northern Ireland, Philippines, Poland, Somalia, United States, Colombia, Czech Republic, France, India, Indonesia, and the Ivory Coast. During the round of questions, Białowska said she would like to learn to be more empathetic and compassionate.
Every day we learn something new, and we all have unique experiences, and all of us can learn something about ourselves. And to be more authentic and personal, what I've discovered is that it costs us so little to enrich the life of others, and this is the cost that we can all afford, and believe me, it's worth its price. So if you would like to discover something new, just try to learn to be rich more in empathy, in compassion.
Sri Saini from America finished as the first runner-up, while Olivia Yesse from Ivory Coast finished as the second runner-up.
And now for a look at how the weather will be playing out over the next few days. Thank you for watching the weekly roundup on EAC News Channel. For more breaking news and updates, you can check out our website, eacnews.asia, or search EAC News on Telegram or at your favorite app store. More from the EAC News team in the Daily Roundup on Monday night at 8 p.m. We will see you then.